The story begins on a dark, quiet night. Shelley and her husband Daniel are asleep in their bed. Shelley gets up and walks in a determined manner, like she is going somewhere. She gets outside and stands with her arms out and mouth open. There are strange noises coming from somewhere. In the morning, Daniel wakes up and picks up a camera to go outside to find his wife. Clearly, she has been doing this long enough for it to seem normal. She always wakes up and goes outside to stand in the exact same spot that they even have marked, staring at the sky at God knows what. Daniel wakes her up. She seems startled a bit, but not shocked. She was bitten a bit by mosquitoes, and they talk about spraying the yard with anti-mosquito spray and a bug zapper to put outside. After getting her some coffee, he asks her on camera how long it has been going on. She tells him 2.5 years. There hasn't been any history of this in her or her family. Breaking news is on the TV. The reporter says a man is the latest victim of an epidemic virus called LV. But she says most people who contact the virus are mostly fine from complications. Daniel puts up the bug zapper and sprays the yard. That's when Mr. Kate, his landlord, comes by and tells him it's useless and to pay the rent on time. He asks him about his wife's sleepwalking and to keep her in check, or Mr. Kate will gladly kick them out. Shelley is injecting herself with a fertility treatment. They are trying to have a baby, but they are finding it hard. Daniel has cameras all over the house and is recording it to post the videos about his wife and hopefully reach someone who has been through the same thing and might have a solution. The next night, they set an alarm on a sensor to wake her up the second she gets out of bed. That night, she gets up as usual. The alarm sounds, but it only wakes up Daniel. Shelley just keeps walking outside, but this time, when Daniel follows her with the camera, she's standing at a different spot. He tries to wake her up, but she grabs his arm and opens her mouth to make a very strange noise. Later, when he shows her the video, she just jokingly tries to make the noise again. When they look at the footage, they see her heading for her usual spot, but something makes her turn around. Daniel wants to tell their doctor, Dr. Lopez, but she doesn't agree yet. Dr. Lopez is an ass. He tells the court on a recording that Shelley's sleepwalking is caused by stress. It all started when her husband almost died due to complications from LV, and at the same time, she had lost a child before it was born. Daniel checks the clips, and he spots something odd. It looks like a person. Someone else was out there with them that night. When he shows her, she dismisses it and said they would notice if someone else was there with them. When he checks the email, someone suggests tying her down. But when they tried that, she hurt herself badly trying to get out of the handcuffs. He gets another email from someone called Mary Q. She says her husband has also been sleepwalking. She suggests locking the doors and hiding the key. Daniel seems to like that idea, so he responds to keep in touch with Mary. After a week, Shelley is getting worse. She hasn't stood on her usual spot yet. She is blacking out during the day, doing strange things like spraying water everywhere and spilling the bug spray. One day, she is watching TV and she tells Daniel that there are voices coming out of it even though the TV is showing only static. When Daniel comes back from work, Shelley is in a fugue state, smashing a knife on the cutting board that has vegetables on it. He slowly tries to grab the knife out of her hand, but she puts it to his neck and wakes up and acts like nothing has happened. That night, Daniel puts the locks on the door. She now thinks it's not a good idea and tries to get him to stop. She jokes about the voices in her head not being happy about this. While eating dinner, she drinks something that she hates, but apparently it was her favorite. She tells him how confusing her life is and that she can't know if anything is real at this point. She's worried about this, and they talk more and smile. That night, she wakes up as usual and finds the doors locked. She checks the side door, which is also locked, but then she easily finds the key Daniel had hidden. When outside, she notices the bug zapper, so she turns it off. They check the recording, and Daniel says she looked possessed based on how she found the key. She wants to do it again, so he hides the key somewhere else. She easily found the key, again and again and again for 5 straight days. She thinks the thing inside her head is adapting and changing. She tells him to call Dr. Lopez, and he is glad. But when he picks up his phone to call, she stops him and says tomorrow. Dr. Randall Barr, head of the CDC, talks about 70% of his staff is infected and suggests that in the next year, 99% of the population will either be infected or dead from it. So they need to identify other carriers and develop a vaccine. Daniel notices Shelley getting up and tries to wake her up, but she stops him and makes that noise again. But then she finds the key and opens the door, but before she goes out, she pins him with the kitchen table and says, "Don't follow," in an evil-sounding deep voice. So naturally, he follows her. Outside, she hits him with a door and says he is lucky she loves him and runs off into the woods. He tries to follow her, but it's too dark to see anything and he loses her. He hears those noises again, but she isn't around. Day breaks, but he still can't find her. So he heads back home. Mr. Kate makes a snide comment when he spots him walking in alone. When he gets to the door, she opens it asking where he's been. The bed is covered with dirt. He shows her the video of what happened the night before. He was worried, and now so is she. So they call Dr. Lopez and schedule a meeting. She worries that she might be admitted to the hospital again. When he checks the emails again, Mary asks if Shelley had found the key, and it comes as a shock. He replies to ask if the same thing happened to her husband and waits for a response. Mary quickly writes back and says yes, but she's not ready to share yet. Dr. Lopez is on a video call. He sees the videos and says the new symptoms are not good and that he'll up the dose on her meds and tells her to stop the fertility medications as well. He also tells them to stop the recordings because turning their lives into an experiment might also be the cause for the sleepwalking to become worse. He also dismisses her finding the keys consistently by saying sleepwalkers do strange things. That night, she hears the voices become clearer when she is getting ready for bed. Daniel gets another email from Mary. It says, "They are in your life and they work together, but no one knows who they actually are." That night, an alarm wakes Shelley up and she pushes the nightstand to the door so Daniel can't get in. And she cuts her hand and something weird falls out. When she freaked out, Daniel heard and tried to go in, but she had the door blocked and the cameras are being shut off one by one with a mysterious person. She says they're being attacked and a very bright light shines through the window. When Daniel forces his way into the bedroom, Shelley isn't there. He runs outside, but she isn't there either. 2 days later, she still hasn't been found. He thinks that the people that took her had been watching them for a long time. A police detective comes to the house wanting to talk to Daniel. He doesn't believe Daniel is telling the truth. He thinks it's some kind of hoax. Mary emails again saying that Shelley will return in 6 days. But when he asks how she knows this, she doesn't say anything except he will understand in 6 days. And on day 6, just like Mary said, Shelley wanders back home from the woods. When she knocks on the door, he doesn't believe what he's seeing. He rushes to open it, but she seems oddly normal now, saying she forgot her keys and locked herself outside. She wants to go get breakfast. He shows her the video of what happened, but she remembers none of it. The detective shows up and talks to them, but she says she's feeling really good. And the detective wants to close the case, but Daniel isn't happy with it. But without any more evidence, and with Shelley being back, there's no reason to keep looking. Shelley then throws away the fertility stuff. Then they go to bed and talk about the things she remembers when she disappeared. Daniel hasn't let it go and is worried they'll come back, but she tries to calm him down and tells him not to worry about it. In the morning, something weird happened. Shelley was still in her bed and slept through the night. Dr. Lopez says that her sleep patterns are now normal after 3 days of observing her. He mentioned it might have been the fertility medication and to just enjoy the good news, but Daniel is still not completely happy. The detective shows up one day and tells them that a group of teenagers had just admitted to turning off the cameras of their house and also trashing another house nearby. This news makes Shelley satisfied, but Daniel isn't believing it at all because they didn't say they took Shelley. The detective said she must have crawled out the window when David didn't pay attention. Dr. Randall is now playing down the risks of LV and says it's okay because most people already have it by now, but he looks different than before. Very odd and weird. Shelley is taking down the cameras now and Daniel agrees and helps her because she isn't sleepwalking anymore. After living their normal lives for a week, they decide to go on a beach vacation. And she's asleep in the car, and when he points the camera at her, she opens her mouth like before and makes that noise again. Mary emails Daniel to say that this isn't his wife anymore and that she's not human. To check this, he should check her blood. She asks Daniel to get small hidden cameras and put them around the house. Shelley is there on the couch having breakfast and laughing at the TV, but there is nothing there except static. A voice tells her something and she turns towards the hidden camera and finds it. When Daniel comes back from work, she asks him why he's still recording her. She confronts him on why he isn't happy. He tells her that she's not his wife anymore and something has changed about her. He says he wants to see her blood, but she says she's leaving and starts to pack a bag. When they scuffle at the door, she hits her head and falls down, passing out. He ties her up, and when she keeps screaming at him, he gets a knife and cuts her hand, and instead of blood, it was worms. He tries to talk to her, but she tells him to untie her before it gets out of hand. She warns him to put her friends somewhere safe, but he steps on them, making her scream in horror, and she makes that noise again. This signals a spaceship to come out from the sky. It is aliens. There are lots of people now in their yard making the same noise as she did. Dr. Lopez and the detective walk in. Daniel puts a knife at her neck and warns them not to do anything. They sit down and talk when he offers his body. Instead of hers, they tell him they tried, but some people reject them. The detective punches him in the gut and takes him down. But when he pulls out his gun, Lopez stops him, but Daniel stabs him in the gut. They tell him he should have just stopped looking for answers, so now she has to leave. And if he tries to tell people, they'll think it's crazy or a hoax. Mr. Kate walks and pulls him up, tells him that he's Mary Q. He tells him that there are people who are immune and gets him out of the house before the police arrive. And with that, the movie comes to an end.